Family Resource Center invite you to join us on Bobo 89.1 FM for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting, where we share practical and positive parenting information to support happy, healthy family life. We'll share how to handle day-to-day issues. We'll address common challenges with parenting, such as how to manage misbehavior, supporting our teens through growing up, managing co-parenting dynamics, and how to take care of ourselves and manage our own stressors. Family Resource Center, committed to building people, building families. Tune in on Bobo 89.1 FM. Find us at frc.gov.ky or call us on 949-0006. Submit your questions and concerns regarding parenting to us, and we'll share them on air. Join us for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting.
All right. Welcome, parents. Welcome, Cayman. This is Rethink Parenting. My name is Anne-Marie Diaz, and I'm joining you from the Family Resource Center. And I have with me the lovely Andrea Nixon from Cayman International School. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
It's so awesome to have you. And I always think of you when we come to things like this, because not only do you have like lots of knowledge around this subject or any kind of topic related to students and their welfare and their academic success, but you present with such a genuine approach. You genuinely care about students, you care about your staff and the parents, right? That whole triad, we all got to work together, right, for our students' success. And so it's so awesome to have you in that way as well, right? So welcome, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I care a lot about students being happy. When you're in a school environment, you want to come in and feel like students are supported and that they're ready to learn. And there's so many more aspects, I think, that are components of that to help them feel like they're going to be successful for the day and they're ready to learn new information. And a lot of that is a social, emotional aspect that we don't always know how to address. And I think that's really comes through a school-home partnership where everybody's working together to help them feel successful and happy.
Right, absolutely. And so we're here, obviously October, if you don't already know, is Stood Up Month, right? That's our bullying prevention campaign that we do every year in October through the Family Resource Center's efforts. And we address it in a number of ways, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And today, this is part of it, right? We're going to address bullying in the schools. And so obviously we're speaking to you, the listeners, and we're typically, it's parents that are tuning in and listening to these. But if, you happen to have escaped school, students, you should go back to class. But we'll also talk about it in that way too. And parents can share that information with their kiddos, right? And if any school staff are here listening, so we can talk about things in that way as well. So let's just start off very generally in terms of what's your take on bullying in the school environment?
I think one of the most important things that we can do as educators and as parents is to be proactive with our strategies. So a lot of times you hear about bullying when it's already risen to more of a crisis point and it's become a huge issue. But I think it's really important to start early to work on teaching the students the difference, first of all, just between what does it mean to be a bully or that action, and what does it mean to be rude or mean. Right. If we start with teaching them, this is what it looks like when you're saying rude things or when you're being unkind. If they start to recognize that then and then address it then before it becomes this huge mountain of an issue, then I feel like you can nip a lot of these things in the bud and it becomes more of a positive supporting environment. But there's a lot of confusion with students and children around what does it mean to be a bully? Right. Or what does it look like really when somebody's being unkind to me? Right. And if they can recognize it, then you can report it. Right. And you can do that earlier. And, I think we say that over and over again. And that's why months like Stood Up to Bullying are so important, so that people are aware of what it looks like so you can address it.
Exactly. And our theme this year for Stood Up is Get Up, Stay Up. And so the idea is that, we're getting up, we're standing up to bullying throughout October, we're talking about it. But the staying up aspect is all about maintaining that stance year-round, especially in the schools, right? And so we don't want to just talk about it and then we sweep it under the rug after October. It's something that's an ongoing discussion, right? And just like you said, if we're tackling it when it's just rude or it's disrespectful, we're essentially preventing bullying, right? We're preventing bullying behavior if we're tackling it before it gets to that place. So that's great. Now, you're joining us from Cayman International School. And so obviously that's one of our private schools here. And I'm going to share a little bit more about what we're actively doing in the schools from the Family Resource Center's standpoint for October. But let's hear a little bit about your school in terms of how you address bullying. What are your policies around it? Mm-hmm. What is your expectation amongst maybe the staff, the students, and the parents too, right? Parents have to have a voice in this. What's kind of your expectation and some of your policies that you have?
I think the first thing to start with is, CIS has 4 principles that we teach from an early, young age. And one of those is kindness. And that starts from, we talk about your heart. And it's really, when you're even from early childhood, what does it look like to be kind to others? And incorporating that into our character lessons that our counselors work and push into classrooms to teach throughout all the grades, which is incredibly important. And then how do you get students involved with that and to be proactive as well? One of the things in the middle school that we do, we have student ambassadors, and they're leaders across a number of different arenas, but they are trained specifically on how to be an upstander.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, and they stay throughout the year. So our ambassadors are one part. They take part in campaigns. So they make posters, they put them around the school, and when they see somebody, they say something. And what I like about what you said about making sure it's not just for October, those students are leaders throughout the year.
Right.
And so because they're across grade levels, then they are constantly the ones who are being vigilant and know if they see something, say something. And students know who they can go to. And then that way it gets brought up to a counselor or to a teacher. Or sometimes, they address the issue themselves or are able to be problem solvers.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. I mean, I did a training recently at Cayman Prep, and that was a point of discussion of, you guys are school leaders now, and even if you don't feel like you have that much kind of say or that much power, you do have a lot of responsibility, right? Being in the high school, being in sixth form, you now can support your peers and support one another in how to navigate these issues, right?
Yeah.
You just need the information in order to do it right? And a big part of it was interesting because it came up about, miss, if I go to a trusted adult and they're not handling it, I'm going to take matters into my own hands. And then we're like, okay, hold on, slow down, right? Instead of going 0 to 100, and I empathize, right? I get that frustration if I'm not being listened to, do I really have the power to handle it myself? And so I think that's a big conversation for parents too, and to empower their children, not just school staff, but parents as well, to empower the students, to empower their children to, what does that look like to confidently and assertively say, hey, that's not okay. That's not what we do here. And we had a conversation too about what if my friend is a bully and, I'm in this, predicament now because I'm their friend. Like, can I call them out? Can I, turn against them publicly? Mm-hmm. And so we talked a little bit about that. And yeah, actually, if you're their friend, you're in the best position to say, hey, buddy, that's not what we're about. And we're about this principle at school of kindness. We choose kindness. And you're in a prime position to have those conversations.
I completely agree. And I think bringing up the parental part of it is so important because what you just said for the students and for the parents is reporting. Yeah. And I do feel like it's one of the biggest barriers is that if you see something, you have to say something and then you have to share it. I know one thing we've worked really hard on is building proactive parent relationships as well.
Great.
Because if you don't have relationships with parents, then they aren't going to trust to come in and say that something is happening. So we hold parent coffees on other issues, but to get to know parents, to invite them in, volunteer opportunities. We're having a social this weekend, and it's very volunteer parent oriented, so they get to come in and be part of the social aspect of school as well.
Oh, that's fun.
Which we're really looking forward to it. Well, I think it will be great fun. And then what we found is you're more likely to have that parent come in confidence and say, there actually is a bullying situation that's going on. Or there's something that my child has felt comfortable sharing with me but hasn't shared yet. Or that they've seen. A lot of times there's information out there that I don't think gets to where it needs to go. And we need to empower students to come report. And if they don't, as parents, to feel comfortable and confident reporting as well. Because if we don't say something, then the right people don't know what's happening, and we can't stop it.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, some parents might feel a little, obviously there's a lot of emotional overwhelm that can take place. And then you're thinking, oh, I don't want to be that parent. I don't want to be labeled as, a problem parent. But how can, say, a parent advocate for their child that maybe they're on the other end of the spectrum? They're like, I'm not, shy about this sort of stuff. I'm very happy to take it up. But, we don't want to go into that realm of presenting as aggressive or disrupting that school-parent relationship. What could they do?
I think the best way to... Counselor is one of the most important people, I think, in the school to help with this. But if you have a better relationship with one of the teachers that your child works with, or that's who I would reach out to initially. And doing it in the spirit of partnership.
Right.
Of like, I want to help. Here's what I know is happening. How can I help to make this better?
Right. How can we do this together?
Yes.
Right.
Because it really is a homeschool partnership.
Yeah, it has
and if
to be.
we're on the same page, then we can help the children to be happy and be successful. Because really, we all want the same thing.
Right.
We want them to be okay.
Yeah.
But if you approach it that way, I think educators are all really open to receiving that information and having that help, because we're not in the homes. And we don't know some of the things that are happening outside of the school environment. And we know it still bleeds over into school.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And bullying, we're talking about bullying in the schools today, but bullying takes place anywhere, right? Community, workplaces, home. And throughout October, we're going to be talking about it here on Bobo and Rethink Parenting every Tuesday at 1. But today we're focusing on addressing bullying in the schools. And like you said, it's going to bleed over. I think the idea of the socials is, that's really cool, because then if I feel comfortable already as a parent with the staff, then I am going to feel comfortable sharing about something that's a bit more sensitive, but very important, right, to my child's welfare, or maybe my child sharing about something that's taking place with other children, right?
Absolutely. And I think in the younger grade levels, we have, homeroom parents or volunteering on the field trips. And I know it's hard for people to be able to get in sometimes, but having it open, and if you can make one time to go into the classroom, if you're able to, I think it just develops your comfortability. It doesn't feel like there's their school and that's separate from what I'm doing.
Right.
I really get to build those relationships and feel like I'm welcome and wanted. And as a school, I think it's really important to put that vibe out there. Yeah. That we do want you to come in. We do want you to share. Because you're right. I think parents sometimes feel like, ooh, I don't want to be the problem, so I just won't say anything.
Right.
But in reality, we want you to.
Yeah.
We want you to feel like you can come in because, they're your children.
Yeah. I guess it is about starting those conversations and forging those relationships, right? And it takes effort on everyone's part, right? It shouldn't just be on school staff. It should be on us as the parent as well, right? To take that active stance. So right now for Stood Up, we've been invited. We're going into the schools. I just did Cayman Prep yesterday. We're at Georgetown Primary. Like right now, I have my colleagues there. And we're in both private and public schools this month. And we're training selected students in becoming upstanders. So very, very similar to what you already do.
Yay.
Yeah, so a reason we're not in your school. Because you're already doing it. And so we're really excited. We're training them to become upstanders, to do exactly what you're doing, sharing that information with their peers, supporting problem solving before it essentially gets to bullying behavior, and disarming things, right, a little bit. And so at the end of, or near the end of the month, we're going to go back in and they're going to get their pins. They've already taken the Stood Up pledge, and they're going to get their pins in front of their whole school. And they're going to get to see, these are the upstanders at my school. I can go to him, I can go to her and talk about these things. And so it was such a joy to be a part of that yesterday at Cayman Prep, because I said, hey, be authentic with it. Stand up, take this pledge if you genuinely want to be a part of this. And if you're not so sure, stay seated and, mull it over, think about it. But if you feel ready, we're going to do this. We're going to say our pledge right now. And it was just so beautiful. You saw like half of the sixth formers stood up and they were really excited. And they were like, Miss, let's put our hand over our heart.
That's amazing.
Let's take this pledge. And so they clearly were committed. And I'm really excited about this group. And I'm excited about all the private and public schools we're going to this month. It's really exciting. We're going all the way to Northside. East End Primary is involved. Red Bay. So it's really exciting. St. Ignatius is also on our list. So we're doing a lot in the schools this month, but there's other things we're doing. We're doing a Bully Proof Your Child webinar at the end of the month. We're obviously on radio every week, I should say, at Tuesday at 1 p.m. talking about this. But I also would love to encourage persons to buy their own shirts. We have our stood up shirts.
Yes, I have mine.
Yeah. Do you?
I'm breaking it out. I almost wore it today.
Oh, nice. Oh, you should have. No, it's okay. But for us, so we have our Dress for Our Cause Day on Friday. That's when we're honoring it, but we're encouraging organizations, schools, hold your own on whatever day you want. Right. October's a nice long month. You have that midterm break in the middle. But it's a nice long month, so wear your shirt whenever you want to. That's totally fine. We're going to hold ours Friday. We're going to be in front of the Government Administrative Building with our pink shirts, our 2022 pink shirts. And so you feel welcome to join us, 9 a.m. on Friday. It's really fun. Lots of things.
What I love about all of those initiatives is it gives a common language.
Yes.
So no matter, we're all in this together, and it's a small community, and I think it's important that everybody has the same terminology, the same language, so that both inside the school and outside of the school, exactly how to address things and what you mean. Exactly. When you say being an upstander or being a victim or being a bully.
Exactly. So you just called out the three main roles that are involved in bullying, right? So I'm either a victim of bullying, I am the bully, or I'm a bystander. And I get involved, or I don't, right? I make the matter worse or not so great, or better, depending on my stance as the bystander. So let's talk about each of those roles and how a school staff member, for example, should respond to each one. Because it's not a case of let's demonize the bully, let's, shame them. We also have to make sure that we're addressing that appropriately and supporting them as well, right? Mm-hmm. So let's start with the bully. How, if we're seeing something taking place, it's evident that they're the bully in this situation, how should a school staff respond to that?
Well, I think the most important thing is the Cayman Islands government has a bullying policy that we follow, and we do follow it at CIS. It's been very helpful. And the first step of that is to interview everybody that's involved. Right. And to your point, it's not just addressing the bully. It's getting the information from everybody. And that's the person who's been accused of being a bully, the victim, and all of the bystanders. Because you need to have an opportunity to report. And I think it's important sometimes that the person who's been accused of being a bully does feel like a victim because they're not heard and you don't know the full situation. Until you get all of the information, you can't really think about how am I going to address the situation and what strategies will I use, because every situation's unique. If it turns out that the person, there is a bully, somebody who's demonstrating that behavior, because we know there are no full-time bullies. Right. You're making choices at one time.
All the time. Yeah. No.
You made a choice at a certain period of time to have a repeated behavior. The whole point is to teach you and show you what's happening. Yeah. Because at times that person isn't aware of how the other people are feeling in the situation.
Very true.
We've found a lot that when you do that interviewing portion, you end up addressing a lot of the issues.
Right. The root cause, there's a lot going on underneath, right?
Getting everybody on the same page about what is actually happening before you can make restitution. Right. And then the ultimate goal is certainly to repair those relationships and figure out, well, now that this has happened, how do we move forward? What are we committing to in the future from the person who has been demonstrating bullying behavior and also to the person who then is the victim? Right. As it's really about, I think, making amends on both sides. And at times, it's hard because students do hold on to things, especially in a smaller community. I think sometimes
it's hard. Yeah.
It's recognizing what's happening now versus what happened 5 years ago.
Right.
Sometimes that's an interesting
The forgiving
portion
and
too.
forgetting is challenging, right?
It is.
But I appreciate what you're saying. And instead of just going straight to problem solving, let's fix this, let's nip this in the bud. Oh, this is what's happening. This is how you do it. Boom. Actually, let's unpack what's happening. Let's hear from everybody, because appearances sometimes can be deceiving, or we, as parents, as teachers, as the adult involved, we can have our assumptions.
Yes.
And so I think it is really nice to make sure that the student, the child, that they're being heard, right?
Yes. And I think that's the first part of it, really,
Right.
is making sure that you get to that. And then you can make a plan for addressing and reteaching, because that's really the whole point. If somebody's demonstrating this behavior over and over again, how do we teach them? What
to do instead?
Yeah. So and why are you doing it?
Yeah.
If there's always a root cause, to your point.
Right.
There's something that's happening.
Yeah, and how can we support that? And I mean, sometimes as parents we might think, oh, my child would never do that. My child would never be the victim of bullying, and my child would never be the bully. But, things happen as children grow up, and, they're being exposed to various things at school. They're making friends and sometimes enemies, right? And, we sometimes don't realize what's going on. And we might not even realize, wow, little Johnny didn't want to share this with me because maybe they were scared of how I would react. And so we have to be mindful that to not kind of maybe overgloss and overglaze like things and think like, you know what, my kid would never do this. They would never be caught up in this. Because actually any one of us can get caught up in it, right? Yes. Even as adults, much less as children.
I completely agree. And I think, to your point, it really is exposure.
Yeah.
If we expose what's happening and everybody has to talk about it, a lot of times the issue it becomes eliminated. It gets squashed because we've addressed the root issue and it's no longer a secret.
Right.
Because that's where it starts to fester and build into a huge thing.
Yeah.
And I keep going back to it, but that's why your messages that you're taking to everybody, teaching common language to address the issue and be an upstander early is so important.
Right, exactly. Now, so I feel like we're going to say a very similar thing for each party, right? So, but let's say the victim now. Should I address the issue in a different way as a school staff member?
I think, what I've noticed seems to be a pattern a lot of times with people who are the victims. I think it's getting them, it is reporting, but it's reporting in a different way. It's finding out really what is happening. How often has this happened?
Right.
Who are you reporting these things to? Who are you sharing with? And what was the context? As you said, a lot of times I do think there's confusion over one instance of something occurring versus it repeatedly happening.
Right.
And then sharing where are all the situations where this has occurred so we can address everything.
Yeah.
And making sure there's a full disclosure.
Yeah.
And not just, about the one incident, so I'm only going to tell you that.
Right.
You want to find out everything that's been happening. And if it's only been one person or if there are multiple people involved. Because you don't want to address it with two people when, in fact, there's a group of people and it really won't solve the problem.
Right.
So I think it's getting information, but getting information in a slightly different, with a slightly different purpose, a slight viewpoint.
Right.
To help us solve.
Because, bullying should be taken seriously.
Yes.
But I think a big thing, because we have been talking about it quite a lot, is it actually gets thrown around for simple things and things that aren't bullying at all. And so just for listeners, obviously bullying is when it's harmful behavior. It has to be repetitive to be labeled as bullying. And it's where someone is really exerting their sense of power and their control over a situation, right? And so the whole idea of bullying prevention is to prevent things from getting to that place, right? Because, I can imagine that students at school, they might say, oh, this person's bullying me. And then when you actually unpack it, it's actually, this is an isolated issue and we can address it right now, sure. But it's not bullying yet. And we're a part of preventing that right now. Right?
I think there's a mix between the two, absolutely. And when it is bullying, it's important to get, as you're saying, all of the information. If it's not, then helping them understand the language and the tools for how to solve that problem so it doesn't become bullying. So still very happy that somebody reported it. And then if there's a victim, we do want to find out everything because it is a really big deal. And I appreciate that it's taken very seriously. And I think that helps students as well when they see that when we initiate this process, that it's not just one conversation.
Right.
That it's multiple conversations and there's multiple people involved, because it really is a big deal.
Yeah. And so solutions to it won't come that easy. It takes after all those conversations, and then we can maybe come out with a collaborative solution. What's going to work for all of us right now.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a very important role, which is the bystander, right? It's really interesting because I'll hear kids say, oh, well, miss, I just won't get involved. It's fine. Well, actually, no, you're a part of the problem, because that can be received as you're okay with it. If I walk by something and I say, well, someone else will handle it, or it's not my problem, I'm a part of kind of condoning something, right? And if I'm walking across someone that's in harm's way, I should intercede.
Say something.
Yeah.
Yes,
in
absolutely.
some way, if it's not to them, it's not direct. Maybe I don't want to put myself in harm's way. Maybe I'm going to someone else who I feel could confidently handle the situation, because I don't necessarily feel ready to do that, right? So let's talk a little bit about the bystander, and how do you approach that from the school standpoint?
It depends on the situation, but if it is if there has been an incident of bullying that's been reported, then the bystanders are interviewed in exactly the same way.
Right.
And you're right, they're shocked a lot of times that they should have said something and that it wasn't okay just to walk away. And then it's finding more information. What else are you seeing?
Right.
How often have you seen something?
Right.
Why didn't you say something? But in a supportive way of making them realize it's a teaching moment.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So you want to make sure that everybody in this whole process feels supported and heard.
Right.
So if they didn't know and our proactive strategies weren't effective, then this is a time. Now we can teach you.
Yes.
So you know exactly what it looks like. And I do feel like students who have been involved in this process, you hear from a lot more afterwards, because they trust that the adult is going to hear them.
Yes.
And they will do something about it. I think that's a really huge part, is trust and making sure that you build those relationships and you show them, I do hear you and I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
Not, I just heard you, but I'm busy. Let's go do this.
Right.
Instead, tell me about it later.
Right.
I think that's how we've gotten a lot more families, parents and students to share.
Yeah.
It's building that trust and following through on your actions.
Yeah.
But with bystanders, it's a lot of reteaching.
Yeah.
I feel like if they haven't reported, sometimes it's the bystander who reported in the first place.
Right.
And that's
right.
excellent. That's a time for praising and really making sure that they feel supported as well when all this information comes out. And that's where, too, I think you really emphasize a lot of the confidentiality.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's great. I think, as a bystander, you're in a very tricky predicament. I can imagine walking by something and going, dang it, now I got to do something, right? But you do. Yeah. Once you get included into something, even just by observing, you have to do something about it, right?
You have to say something. You see something, you say something.
Right, exactly.
We say it all the time.
Exactly. So we're going to take a quick little break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more with Andrea about the different types of bullying and some pointers for parents and what they can take away today.
That sounds great.
All right.
The Family Resource Center invite you to join us on Bobo 89.1 FM for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting, where we share practical and positive parenting information to support happy, healthy family life. We'll share how to handle day-to-day issues. We'll address common challenges with parenting, such as how to manage misbehavior, supporting our teens through growing up, managing co-parenting dynamics, and how to take care of ourselves and manage our own stress. Family Resource Center, committed to building people, building families. Tune in on Bobo 89.1 FM. Find us at frc.gov.ky or call us on 949-0006. Submit your questions and concerns regarding parenting to us, and we'll share them on air. Join us for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting.
All right, welcome back, listeners, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure this is your lunchtime, and hopefully you're taking a little break from work to listen in on this very important topic of bullying. And we're talking about it every Tuesday at 1 p.m. on Bobo 89.1 FM. Today, we're specifically talking about bullying in the school setting. And I have the lovely Andrea Nixon with me today from Cayman International School. And they have some great strategies at school that are really impacting the students. And we're going to share a little bit more about what they're actively doing. And of course, local schools and private schools, they all have their own bullying policy that they adhere to. And that comes out in different ways. But I'm just so happy to have you here with us. You're just full of knowledge and just, like I said, that genuine care for students, for parents, for teachers alike. So it's so great to have you. And so, Andrea, we've been talking about various things today. I want us to look at, we've talked about the different roles in terms of that bullying environment, right? Now, bullying is starting to look a little different to maybe when we were growing up, right? So we might have that social exclusion, there's rumor spreading. And between genders, it might look quite different too, right? So boys might kind of engage more in the social exclusion and the physical bullying, whilst girls are maybe doing the whole, the emotional bullying and the social exclusion as well. Social exclusion, I think, is a big thing in schools. But what's definitely growing and becoming even more pervasive is, I would say, the cyberbullying. And the cyberbullying and the social bullying often go hand in hand, don't they? And so that might be, a child is on a game and they're chatting and suddenly they're turning something into this idea of exclusion, or they're posting something on social media, or they're making sure that their other peers kind of turn against someone, and using cyberbullying in that way, right? Or even texting, something as simple as a text is constituted as cyberbullying, right? Are you seeing it? Are you seeing cyberbullying in the school environment? Are you noticing it, or have you heard that it's taking place?
So what we've noticed is in the school environment, we have so many firewalls that are set up that it really prevents, during the school day, a lot of that happening.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
Because a lot of the sites are blocked and they're filtered out, which I think is really helpful. Right. And the conversations we've had with a lot of families is teaching them to set up some similar things at home as well.
Right, yeah.
To make sure that you have the right restrictions on. I think for it's so hard to keep up with technology.
It really is.
There's so many new apps and new things out there that you're going, I haven't even heard of this.
Right, yeah.
But when your child does start to engage with a new type of social media,
yes,
it's making sure that you check it out yourself, go online, read about it, learn what's happening,
right,
and then set up the right restrictions for it. I also think it's really important when your child's engaging with technology to have that in an open environment and have them near you.
Yeah.
So when you're off in your bedroom alone, doing your own thing, it's much more difficult to monitor.
Exactly.
Than it is when we're all out together and just keeping it open so it's easy to see if they're the victim of it,
right,
or if they're a perpetrator.
Yeah.
Because it's out in the open environment. Those are some of, I think, the proactive things you can do to try to help make and decrease these instances, because I agree they do happen.
Yeah.
It's really trying to set parents up for success with what they have going on at home and then within the school, because again, it's that transfer of what's going on elsewhere can come in, and then it really makes the social relationships difficult at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or at school. So I think that's a big part of it for sure.
So those privacy settings, making sure that those are in place. Mm-hmm. And I like what you said, about the rules around social media, because, we grew up maybe in a neighborhood where the rules were about, you couldn't go past a certain point on your bike. Mm-hmm. You couldn't talk to maybe certain people, or you shouldn't talk to anyone that you didn't know, right? These were the various rules of the neighborhood. And now we're kind of living, or we're raising children that are being raised in the digital neighborhood. And so we have to have similar rules with that too, right? Maybe your child has to be a certain age before they create an Instagram account or a TikTok account, or maybe you have a family, a TikTok account or whatever it might be. And obviously we're not here today to tell you specifically do this, that, and the next, but just to make sure that things are in line with your unique family's values and that your rules are tied to those, right? So I'm not going to say, hey guys, make sure your child isn't starting an Instagram account until this age. That's for you to think about and to consider, and what feels right to you as your unique family and what you stand for in terms of your values. And so your rules around social media and how they engage on, games too. Like a big one right now is Fortnite, and, there are chat capabilities on there. And so children can come into contact with other people, right? And so, like you said, if they're in their room playing their game or texting or whatever they might be doing with technology, I might not see it. But so how can I, outside of those privacy settings and those, safety settings, what else can I do is setting ground rules and what's the expectation? What age should you be? Having these kinds of thoughts.
Yes.
And collaboratively discussing with our children too, like, hey, what are you noticing? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? And you can tell mommy anything. You can tell daddy anything. Let's talk about this. I think keeping things open.
Yes.
Because there's that danger of, I'm going to put all my nasty stuff out there under the pseudonym of Pretty Girl 89 or whatever, right? And I think children especially can really hide behind this persona of, this isn't really me, but this is maybe how they're expressing their anger about someone or something that's going on. And it's easy to just post something anonymously or to chat with someone anonymously, right? So parents should certainly be having those conversations, right?
I think it really comes back to that partnership as well. In the school, one thing I think we do that's great in middle school right now is we do a survey of the students in the beginning of the year, and they can share if they feel like there is bullying at the school, and if so, what type.
Yes.
And then the counselor, when she goes in to do the lessons, because she pushes into the regular classrooms, can tailor it depending on what's happening. And so if it's cyberbullying, then proactively teaching what should that behavior look like when you're online.
Right.
And the fact that your words are recorded, that they are impactful, that they are hurtful, even if it, as you're saying, is your pseudo character.
Right.
You're just getting your emotions out, but it's a real person
that you're impacting. Yeah, absolutely.
And teaching them about that.
Yeah.
I think that seems to be the most challenging.
Yes.
Is helping children to understand.
Make that connection.
That is still the real world.
Yes.
And it's not just this virtual alternative.
Yeah, exactly. It has implications, right? Absolutely. I think with cyberbullying as well, parents should be mindful to have those conversations too, and to think to actually, say to your kiddos, you're not just citizens in the world anymore, you're digital citizens. We all are.
Yeah.
And so we all have a responsibility to use technology with that sense of responsibility, right? And to remember there is a real person on the other end. And not hide behind this character or this idea of it's okay because it's not real, right?
I think it's a lot of ways, when we were first starting getting introduced to email, and you went and you learned etiquette at work versus your social. How do I write a message to somebody? We all trained with it as well, but it's become so pervasive that children are being exposed so much earlier and at such a younger age. Yeah. And I think sometimes we forget to reteach them. Yeah. As you've gotten older and you're now becoming more engaged with Instagram or TikTok, and you now have access whenever you decide that comes with teaching how to use it. Right. The same way that you would teach any other tool or a new responsibility in your home. Like if you were able to go now to Camana Bay by yourself, you set expectations for what that looks like. And new technology, I think, needs to be the same thing. A lot of times, children just don't think about it. Yes. They're impulsive. Yeah. The prefrontal cortex is not developed.
Well, there's that. Yeah, exactly. They have their developing brain, and, a lot of times they're going along with what their peers are doing or not doing, right? They're avoiding things. They want to look cool, right? And I think parents buy phones and buy various gadgets out of convenience or the idea like I need to get a hold of my child. They need to have a phone, right?
Oh, yes.
Sure. Do they need to have these apps? Yeah. Do they need to have, full ability to do whatever they want with them? What's okay with you as a parent? And starting to think about the potential dangers that are out there and how do I keep them safe? I keep them safe by educating myself first and then educating them, right?
And I think there's a lot of technology out there to help you monitor those conversations. the same way we would teach anything else. If you're learning to ride a bike, I'm going to be with you the whole time.
Right.
In the beginning, until they're much later, really much older teenagers, in the beginning, you really do want to monitor them really closely, I think, to help them to navigate. And I think, as well, it's not so much as being monitoring to get them in trouble. It's really to help, if situations arise, how do you navigate that situation? Right. How do you address the bullying that's coming up? If you see somebody being bullied online, or if somebody's being unkind to you, they haven't experienced that situation yet. And if you're doing a closer monitor of checking, maybe every just once in a while, you pick it up and you have access and you look at their messages, it will give you a good idea of where they need the support.
Right. And a parent can communicate that, right? This is our process because I'm keeping you safe. Right?
I think absolutely. Because that part of technology doesn't take place at school, but we can help them absolutely at school to navigate some of those situations if parents feel comfortable sharing what's happening, or if students come in as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we've talked about cyberbullying. I think that's great. And I think if parents have any more questions and want to talk to us about how to navigate quite tricky territory, they can reach out to us at the Family Resource Center at frc@gov.ky, or give us a call on 949-0006, and we're very happy to have that conversation. Let's talk about other forms of bullying. So what would you say, if any, do you feel there's any kind of, overt or covert sort of bullying taking place at the school? Or what are you noticing?
I think it really depends on the cohort. Each year group has a different dynamic about what's more pervasive. And as you said as well, it's gender-based as well.
Yeah.
And that's why I love the survey of getting the information, and then we kind of tailor our strategies depending on what's happening within that particular group of students.
Okay, that's great.
That, I think, is the best approach because they're all so different.
Yes, I love that because you're an inclusion specialist, and so you're very much about tailoring things that are specific instead of this is a one-size-fits-all, this is how it is now. Instead, it's actually looking at what are the needs of each cohort. Yes. That's great.
I think that it's been very effective, and it's their perceived needs too. Yes. What do students really want support with?
Right.
Where are they feeling uncomfortable, and making sure they feel supported.
And so the survey is coming from the student. The student is answering what's going on for them and making you aware.
Yes, and it's confidential if they want it to be, and then if they don't, then they can certainly share information that way. We also have a system where we set up already. The counselor went in and walked through students through finding their safe adult at school and helping them to identify. So they all had to write down, who is your safe adult here?
Oh, that's great.
Who would you go to if you were having a problem?
Right.
And that helps us to tailor as well.
Yeah.
So that there's so many different types of bullying, as you said, that way we know what's happening when it happens, and then we can come up with a plan. But having your safe adult, I love that too.
I love that. And for the adult too, because then you're more likely to go, okay, these are my kiddos. I got to really have a special eye out for them. Instead of I have to watch out for everyone, like hundreds of kids. And of course you do, but maybe I can take a keener eye and make sure that, I keep that title of safe adult, right?
Yes, it makes a huge difference. I think having that keen eye for certain students of what's happening makes a difference for us all observing. So that you can say to the person that's on playground duty, hey, here's who you should keep an eye out for today, over time. And then you can observe from afar and then intercede as you see fit.
Right. Okay, this is great. So let's talk a little bit about, I think, what's quite common in schools in terms of social exclusion. Excuse me. What are some ways to handle things that might not be so obvious?
I think one of the things that we've worked really hard to do is to make sure that we have we meet as teachers, not just as the school teachers, but that as the counselors, the PE teachers, all the support specialists as well, that we work together to meet on a regular basis. And then if there's challenges that somebody is experiencing that we've noticed, like social exclusion, you can see that somebody's not being kind of included in these situations, and then we can address them as they arise. And really on a proactive basis of finding, okay, who might that be a good fit for that person? And we pair them up together. We try different things that, we've noticed at break time, reaching out to them, guiding them to a new group that might be a really good fit for them. And at times, going so far as to reach out to parents as well and setting up play dates, saying, hey, you know what? It looks like so-and-so and so-and-so looks like these two children. They're really enjoying each other, talking to the students first, but then encouraging those developing those relationships outside as well. Because a lot of times if somebody's feeling socially excluded at school, the parents are seeing it at home too. And they're recognizing, they used to be part of this group, but really right now I don't see them spending as much time together. But I think those meetings amongst teachers have been very powerful for us really noticing right in the beginning if somebody is spending a lot of time on their own and not necessarily choosing to do so. So that's helpful.
Great. It sounds like the key there is communication.
Yes, for sure.
And sharing. I love that. When it comes to students themselves, right, there is this sense of, and apologies for my coughing, my coughing about. So they can feel like a sense of powerlessness. If my teacher or my parent isn't doing XYZ, then maybe it's okay. Maybe this is just something I need to tolerate, or I might feel uncomfortable with sharing because I don't know how they're going to react. I don't know what they're going to do. How could a child take something that they might be perceiving at least as bullying into their own hands and handle it? What are some pointers you have there?
I think the first thing is going to your safe adult to help them having them help you navigate, making sure that they feel like there's somebody that they can go confide in, so that you can get strategies for how to navigate a new social group. Sometimes it really is that as you're growing and developing, you might have diverged with different interests, and perhaps you're ready to make some new friendships. And if that's the case, teaching specifically, how do you do that? How do you insert yourself into a new group? It's so hard. We all remember doing it.
Right.
And have those memories from middle school or elementary school or high school of going, I want to make new friends, but how do I do that? And I think it's helpful to have confided in somebody and have some guidance. I also think the big part I've seen is the forgiveness that you were talking about earlier, and making sure that you aren't holding on to something if you feel socially excluded, but that you aren't holding on to something that happened a really long time ago.
Right.
Or vice versa, that group isn't excluding you because of that. And again, if that's what's happening, then reporting it.
Right.
Because reporting is the key to getting help and having somebody help you to solve these problems.
Right.
So it comes back down to, what is the problem? There's so many different reasons why this might be happening, but we need to know why, and then we can devise a support plan.
Okay. And I guess if the root cause is there's an obvious thing that is going on at home, and the parent doesn't mean to maybe be exposing their child to something, maybe they're going through a separation and they didn't realize how much this was impacting their child, and their child is maybe turning their pain into, exerting their control over other students at school, right? It could be as simple as that, and almost kind of as understandable as that, right? But from the parent standpoint, they didn't realize, right, that was taking place. What are some thoughts you have there?
I think a big part as teachers and educators is us feeling comfortable reaching out to parents when we see things happening as well.
Right.
And just really couching it in, I'm just reaching out because I've noticed a change in behavior.
Right.
And I do think that's a huge indicator. When something changes, something is happening.
Right.
And it might be that they're taking the role of the bully, or they've become the victim because they've just become so overcome with their emotions. When you reach out to the family, then you can find out all that extra information of actually, it turns out we're going through a really hard time. And then the conversation becomes, oh my gosh, how can we help you?
Right.
Support you during this time period. And as a parent, then you're aware of the changes in the behavior as well. And if we can open those lines of communication, then we can see, are the strategies that we're choosing effective in changing it?
Right.
Or do we need to go back to the drawing board because we're not seeing a change either?
Yeah. And that reminds me of a story recently. I was with a child, and they said to me, "Well, you know what? I don't know if I trust, the people at school." And I said, that's understandable, but your friend is going through something right now. How can we handle this? How can I support you in handling it? And they said, "You know what? I'm gonna tell their parents." And I thought, well, that's a great upstander move, because you've gone through all the channels. You feel like your voice isn't being heard, and so now you need to take care of your friend, and you need to tell their parents. I think that's a great idea. Do you need my help to do that? Right? And so it was interesting, because you sometimes you're in this kind of predicament as the bystander, or whatever your role might be, the victim, you're the parent of the child, you're sometimes in this place of, oh my goodness, what do I do? How do I handle this? And every situation is different. And outside of bullying, it could just be that there's just an isolated incident, right? How do I handle this right now? How do I talk to the teachers about this? What's something that you want parents to know when it comes to standing up and saying something? It sounds easy.
You're right.
Right. But especially if I'm just in this, I'm just so angry. I'm just so frustrated. I'm very overwhelmed. What's step one for a parent?
I think the first thing is absolutely use your strategies that we teach children of making sure that you get into a calm, safe space first,
right,
yourself.
Yeah.
Because we know, we're mama and papa bears. We care. We love our kids.
Yes.
We want them to be okay. So take a moment, I think, and really calm yourself and think through what you want to have happen.
Right.
And get your plan of, okay, this has occurred, but what do I want out of it? Right? Because we know hopefully you're going to report what's occurred. But if we're going to work in partnership, I think it's seeing eye to eye on that as well. And kind of the same way you do with the students, who is their safe adult? Right. Who do they have a really positive relationship with at the school? It might be the school nurse that you talk to all the time, but you have a good relationship, or the receptionist that you walk in with constantly and you chat every day, if you don't feel comfortable going to the child's teacher.
Right.
Who's the person that you feel like, I can report all this to, I'm going to feel comfortable with, and then they'll guide you to the right people.
Right.
But I think that's a good first step.
Yeah.
If in order to have everybody successful and communicating and working together, because that's what it's all about.
Right. So step one, take a deep breath.
Yes.
And step two, identify who is that? Who can you speak to at the school, and you feel comfortable doing so, and then they can direct you, as you say, to the next point, right?
Yes, and support you in the process, especially I think as it's the beginning of the year. Maybe you haven't met the teacher very much yet because you haven't had the first parent conference.
That's true.
So your child's telling you, but you don't know them.
Right.
I think a lot of times that's where this miscommunication comes about, because you haven't actually had a chance to sit down.
Right. And you don't know how they might react. You don't know how do they kind of handle things themselves, right?
Oh, for sure. And then reaching out to say, I would love to come in and meet with you.
Right.
And having that scheduled, dedicated time for people to hear exactly what it is that's going on.
Okay, great. So I think we're going to take a quick little break and come back.
The Family Resource Center invite you to join us on Bobo 89.1 FM for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting, where we share practical and positive parenting information to support happy, healthy family life. We'll share how to handle day-to-day issues. We'll address common challenges with parenting, such as how to manage misbehavior, supporting our teens through growing up, managing co-parenting dynamics, and how to take care of ourselves and manage our own stressors. Family Resource Center, committed to building people, building families. Tune in on Bobo 89.1 FM. Find us at frc.gov.ky or call us on 949-0006. Submit your questions and concerns regarding parenting to us, and we'll share them on air. Join us for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting.
All right, welcome back, parents, to Rethink Parenting on Bobo 89.1 FM every Tuesday at 1 p.m.
The Family Resource Center.
I've been so privileged to be here today with Andrea Nixon from Cayman International School. She has shared so much that's going on in the schools and how they're handling bullying head on and very proactive, I would say, too. It's really exciting to hear about, and I hope all our listeners feel really excited to, talk to their PTA, talk to their school staff and say, hey, this is how this other school's handling it. These are great ideas. It's not about they're doing it better or whatnot. It's about, hey, these are great ideas. We're creative. Let's work on this together, right? It's a community issue. And so you've been joining us today. This is Anne-Marie from the Family Resource Center. And October, of course, is our Stood Up Month. It's our bullying prevention campaign. And we're really excited. So in addition to having this radio show every week at 1 p.m., where October is all fully dedicated to all things bullying, we're also going to be going into participating schools. We're training select students to become peer leaders and upstanders when it comes to bullying. We're going to be training them so they can equip their peers with valuable anti-bullying strategies and information. And of course, this is all in active support of each school's own bullying policy, which they already have in place. We have our Stood Up shirts. We encourage all schools, all organizations, if you are attached to a workplace and you'd like to do a Dress for a Cause day, it can be on any day that you'd like. Please feel free to do that and to purchase our shirts directly. You can email us at frc@gov.ky and request our order form. And we're going to be celebrating our own on Friday, October 7th. We're going to have a photo op outside Government Administrative Building at 9 a.m. And lastly, our How to Bully Proof Your Child webinar is going to be on October 25th. At 6 p.m. and you can register over Zoom. So please follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We're constantly sharing things on our social media. We have a TikTok too now, Andrea.
That's amazing.
Listen, we have to join the young people, right? And a STEM Girls Camp on Saturday the 29th. So please check us out on Instagram and Facebook to hear all about what we have happening, to purchase your shirt, and to hear more great things next Tuesday at 1 p.m. all about things bullying. Next week is going to be all about workplace bullying, which is really interesting. We think once we leave school, it all stops. No, it doesn't, unfortunately. So join us next week, Tuesday, 1 p.m. for Rethink Parenting with the Family Resource Center. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.